Joe, Mike, and Steven here from buildassetsonline.com. Well, me and Mike are the only official BOW members, but we're here with one of our very special peers, Steven. I don't know how to say your last name, but we're going to talk about Kindle publishing today. He's a multi-six-figure Kindle publisher. Absolutely smashing it, mate. He's smashing it. And yeah, thanks, Mike, for getting him on the show. Steven, thanks for coming. I'm probably going to do a lot of sitting back this episode since you guys are more in the weeds with Kindle than I am. So, yeah.
Yeah, welcome on the show, Steven.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
How do you say your last name?
Burgess.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people will see it and they'll think like burgers or like, you know, it's kind of, it's hard to, I guess, pronounce, but.
Yeah, I mean, the first time your name came across my radar was back in 2016 and I had heard about this Stephen Burgess, and I believe you were like selling off a big catalog of books back then. Am I thinking of the correct thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was the first time you and me had spoken. You had like the Denver Broncos logo as your profile picture. And yeah, I mean, since then a lot of things have changed. So absolutely. I guess if you want to give people a brief background on you, how you got into doing stuff online, how you wound up doing Kindle, all the way up to now.
Yeah, sure. So I think I started in 2015. So I've always been entrepreneurial my whole life. I went to school, got a degree kind of thing. And then, so when I was in college, I was kind of looking for ideas, business ideas. I majored in marketing entrepreneurship. So I always wanted to kind of do my own business kind of thing. And then I graduated and got a corporate job, and it was a good salary. So I thought, okay, I kind of like put the brakes on entrepreneurship at that point. I thought, you know, I got a decent job. I did what I'm supposed to do, basically. Or so they say, right? So then I started doing the job, and like a year in, I realized, you know, this isn't what it's all cracked up to be. And this isn't like how I want to live my life for the rest of my life. Like basically, I wasn't happy in it. Wasn't passionate about it. It was a good job, but again, I just was not passionate, was not happy. So I started to get that entrepreneurial urge in me again. Back in the day, I did do drop shipping. It was way before paid advertising. So I drop shipped grow lights way back in the day. So just ranking for keywords, trying to get number one on Google kind of thing. I ran it with my dad. And then the whole Google update happened. Penguin, I think it was called. And basically we were ranking for all these keywords and like lost our rank. All the sales went to shit. And I just didn't have, I was in college. I didn't have time to like figure it out. So I just got out. And then, so back forward steps, I was in doing my job, didn't like it, was looking for ideas, trying to like do something to get out basically, but didn't know what at that point. And I was just scrolling Facebook one day randomly, and one of my buddies, like something popped up. He was doing like a interview like this kind of thing. And he was making like 6 figures Kindle publishing. So this was 5 years ago. So I listened to the podcast, and I guess the guy that was interviewing him was doing like 30K a month. So my eyes kind of lit up. I didn't even know what Kindle was at that point. So I listened to the interview, and I listened to like who he learned from, because he did say somewhere in the interview like how he got started. So I wrote that name down, bought the course. It was like a $300 course. It was like a nonfiction Kindle course. And then went through that, put my first book up, made a couple $100, and I thought it was pretty sweet, you know? So I did a couple of books like that in nonfiction. I think I was doing like $500 a month. And then I decided to hire a coach, because I thought, well, okay, I'm making a couple $100 a month, but it's not going to get me what I want. Like, I want to quit my job. I want to make 6 figures. The best way to do that is basically hire somebody that's already done it, pay them whatever they want, and then learn everything they know, right? So I did that, and then I think I got up to like maybe $2 or $3 grand a month. But there was something missing in this program. And this person wasn't really that well known. He's not well known now. Most people wouldn't know him now. But I went through this program. Yeah, I did get up to $3 grand a month, but again, I still wasn't, quite at my goal.
Was this fiction or nonfiction?
I was kind of both, but this is where I was like getting into fiction. Okay. But this was like basically back then we did something called republishing, which you guys probably know. So you're not building a brand back then. You just kind of publish books and then keep pumping more and more out and republishing all these books. And like, and you'd basically pump out like hundreds of books, and that's how you made your money. So I then found another person that everybody pretty much knows, took the course. Actually, she didn't have a course back then, so it was one-on-one coaching. Again, paid whatever needed to be paid kind of thing to learn what I need to know. And then there you go. Then I just kept going from there. I would say a year in, probably at the 10 grand month part. And then of course there's a lot of like ups and downs, like things change, algorithms change. So the business back then was completely different on how we do things now. I've had a lot of highs and lows. I got to the 10 grand, went all the way back down to 1 grand, lost everything in 2016. Then I figured out how to build a brand and got it back up to 10 grand, got it up to 20 grand. And then things fell flat again. The algorithm changes, So you just kind of learn to deal with these things as time goes on. And basically you're in Amazon sandbox. You got to kind of play by the rules and adapt. Right. And so, yeah, and now here we are, and yeah, it's doing multi 6 figures profit. So I quit my job in 2018, and I thought I accomplished everything I wanted. And then I realized, anything can happen, and I want to go for more. And so Kindle was my stepping stone into like other things. So, like when you have one stream of income and you're doing good, but you have no, nothing to fall back on, you kind of don't sleep well at night. Right. And so that's when, I thought, okay, I'm doing this in publishing. I can do it in products too. And I started an FBA brand. And I learned, again, I took a course, paid a lot of money for it, hired a coach, learned how to do it. And it did pretty good. I think we got up to like 20K a month. And then I realized, okay, I'm learning all this stuff. Now I can help other brands do the same thing. And that's where my uncle, who basically doesn't sell anything on Amazon, I got him on there and got him from 0 to well over 100K a month in a year. So now I have the publishing, I have this with my uncle, and then my FBA brand. So there's different routes I can go, kind of thing. But I think in the future, I'm going to keep the publishing. But I think I'm going to start an agency. So help other brands basically do the same thing my uncle did, and go that route. But at the same time, keep the publishing. And then the FBA brand that I created, my end goal is to basically build a massive brand. We don't pay ourselves. We reinvest everything to build an audience, and launch new products. And we want to eventually sell it. So like kind of what you guys do with the dropship stores with flipping stores, we want to sell the brand. We want to get eaten up by like one of the bigger brands, So that's like the vision. That's the overall vision. And yeah, that's where we are today. So that's a little bit of, but.
Cool, man. And yeah, it's funny how I want to get into like some of the older Kindle stuff because we went through the same thing. But it's funny how, we both started out doing Kindle, and we both came to the same conclusion that, like we're an Amazon sandbox right now. This isn't the best way to go about doing things forever. We need to diversify.
Yeah.
So, while Kindle is great, it was, you talked about how, so it took you a while to go from just getting started to doing like 2,000 a month and then doing 10,000 a month. And then you said you dropped back down to 1,000 a month. So when, like, what's the timeline there? Because with the republishing stuff, we've alluded to those times back in the day on these shows, but for those who are a bit unfamiliar, this was like pre 2016. So people would publish really short books, and you would try and rank in the algorithm, doing all these stupid keyword stuffing techniques. And yeah, more or less when a book died, you would just take it down. Maybe you change the cover, maybe you wouldn't, and you would put it right back up to get that boost in the algorithm over and over and over. But as you were saying, there was no brand building that was happening. So everything that you were doing was built on nothing really. So was the 10K to 1K drop because of when they made that big change in March 2016?
Let me just think here. Yeah, I think I had two big drops. So yeah, that was a big drop there. And then I built it. Well, actually, yeah, it dropped from 10 to 1, and then it was hovering around 3 or 4 for like 6 months.
Mm.
And then the end of the summer 2016, that's when I decided to screw the republishing and actually do things the right way and build a brand and build a main fan base and all that stuff. I still had that stuff going on at the same time. And then I would say like end of September 2016, that's when I'm like, I'm making just as much as I am with republishing. So I'm going to scrap the republishing. I don't want to be involved with that anymore and just go full in with this brand building. So I would say by January 2017, I was back to 10K.
Nice. And that's, I think it's a similar situation with us as well. Cause we were doing really well. I had quit my job actually. And as I was about to leave my job and Joe was buying a house, we got our Amazon account suspended when they did like the massive crackdown and basically suspended everybody and took the royalties, all that. But after that, I mean, I was still making a decent amount of money per month off Kindle, but I was like so fed up with it that I was just being really hands off about it. But yeah, eventually it kind of came back into focus how, some of the other people from back then were starting to pick things up in a more sustainable way in terms of building the brand. And I think back in 2017, the focus wasn't as much on email lists as it is now. The focus back then was more like, you make the book, maybe it's longer now, and we're going to pay people to do promotions for us. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah. They're like what we call swaps now didn't really exist. You'd have your own email list. Maybe you'd be like 8,000 subscribers or whatever. And then, you'd pay people. There was a few people that had a similar size of a list, and you'd pay them like $100 a pop, send your book. There was no launches really. You would launch a book, but it wasn't like nowadays it's all scheduled and it's organized and it's tailored towards the algorithm, right? Back then you just kind of throw a book out there and put a couple promos on there and that was it. So I think okay, sorry, I could hear myself in the background.
Yeah, Joe, you were like playing it on your
sorry, I was messing with the sound for a second. That's weird. Okay, never mind. I know why that was happening. I was sorry about that. I was trying to figure out why. Never mind.
It's all good.
All right. So thank you for that, Joe. We were talking about the swaps, and we were talking about back then the algorithm wasn't really like we weren't doing things to launch. We weren't doing things to really spike the book in the algorithm back then. It was more just, put the book out, do some promos.
Yeah, so I don't even think like many people had no clue, right? Like it's just how it was back then, and everybody was evolving at the same time. We put a book out there. Yeah, it was just You could still make a lot of money back then, but like there wasn't really paid advertising or anything. You know, it was like Facebook ads were like just starting for Kindle.
Yeah.
And not many people did it or knew how to do it. So then, you know, yeah, I got back up to 10K, but then it started to slowly go down. And this was like, slowly go down up to the point where I was like going to quit my job. And the reason why it was going down is because I was in a micro niche of a niche that I am in now. And I realized the niche wasn't big enough and it wasn't like giving the books enough juice for what it needed to do to like get high in the ranks. And that was when swaps started, right? So I had to rebrand. So that's when it went down again. It didn't happen overnight though. It just slowly went down. Like every month it was like $1,000 or $2,000 less, right? And then I completely rebranded, same pen name and all that, but just rebranded and went to more of the broad niche and got it back. But so that was like kind of a scare. And that was like right when I quit the job and, you know, and that's when I started learning products to get that second stream of income going in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So I feel like since then, things have really stabilized, and you know, I always tell people like in the Elite Fleet in our membership that Kindle is by far the most fluid business model of anything that we do. Things are always changing. There's an algorithm you have to worry about, but I do think we're coming to a place with Kindle publishing where it's really stabilizing. And really my biggest concern with Kindle from day one was the fact that everything was relying on Amazon. But now everything is becoming more email list focused. Everything is becoming, all the power is kind of coming back into the hands of us, like the publishers, because we want to have our own email list and we want to be doing our own paid ads. So do you feel like there's something happening now? Do you foresee anything happening that could disrupt Kindle again?
Not in the same way as it did before. I feel like Amazon will always have their changes and stuff, but I feel back then you just put a book out and you'd hope Amazon just liked you and they'd promote you. But now we promote ourselves. We have more control, right? There's still risks, of course. Like you might, like the algorithm might not, because it's all about conversion, traffic and conversion, right? If you don't convert, then you're not going to stay sticky in the store, and the algorithm will change based on that. So like if you're not converting as well as everybody else around you and the algorithm like changes, let's say before it was more based on traffic and you're putting all this Facebook ads to your book and you're getting sales, lots of sales, but the conversion rate was lower. Now the algorithm has shifted more to a conversion rate. So it doesn't matter about sales. If your conversion rate's low, then you're not going to stick. Whereas back then, I found anyways, it was more sales. So it was all about sales, get as much sales as you can. And they kind of ignored the conversion rate. Not really ignored it, but it wasn't as important. But now it's like you can get all the sales in the world, but if your conversion rate sucks, you're going to fall in the ranks. So I feel overall, like there's always money to be made in Kindle. The readers are there. The market's growing. If not, it's probably bigger than it's ever been with COVID. More people are at home reading. Like that won't go away. It's the minor tactics and tweaks around it. And you're going to have to push your brand and your books from outside sources. So you need to push traffic to your books and convert well to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question about that, actually. So maybe you have some ninja tricks here. I don't know if you do, but as far as I know, tracking conversions is really difficult with Amazon Kindle. I mean, you can obviously track the amount of clicks you get through Facebook ads to the book. And, you know, you can even pixel those if you use like certain software or whatever. But you don't know if they convert once they get to Amazon, especially since if they use Kindle Unlimited, like those page reads come later.
Correct.
So how do you know if the traffic you're sending is converting the way you like it? And like, how would you even tweak for that?
Well, that's the really shitty thing, because you don't know. Like the way I look at it is, you know, if you're spending $100 a day, $200 a day on ads, and your rank is staying where it is, it doesn't move,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's sticky for a long period of time, or if it improved, then you can tell it's converting, right? So yeah, it's kind of hard to tell if you're converting, but like, let's say you're spending $100 a day on ads and your book's falling, and you put another $100 a day. So now you're spending $200 a day on ads and it's still falling. Then it's not converting. Your book's just falling and falling and falling. But let's say you're ranked at 1,000 and you're spending $100 a day on ads, and you're doing that for a week and it stays there, or if maybe it's falling a little bit, you're like at 1,100, 1,200, goes back to 1,000, right? And then you put another $100 a day, so now it's $200 a day, and then the rank gets better. That means your ads are working, like they're converting, like the traffic you're sending to your product page is converting. That's the way I look at it, and that's how it works with products. So yeah, it's all about converting. With Kindle, it's just hard. It's really hard to tell if it converts, but I look at it by like rank and how much I'm spending, and if I can maintain rank at a certain ad spend, then I'll increase it if the ROI is there. So if I'm making sense. But.
Yeah, I know you've done a lot of continuing education, you could say, when it comes to Facebook advertising with Kindle. Yeah. And yeah, that I think that's a really good insight as far as looking at how your rank is reacting to your ad spend, because that's really all you can do. And I would kind of agree there. I feel like when you launch a book, sometimes you can tell how well it's converting just based off of how it's responding. Like I can tell the difference between a book that's going to do really well and a book that may not do so well, and I can tell that in a week.
Yeah, 100%.
And it is by how sticky it is in rank and how quickly maybe it falls in rank, or I mean fall as in go closer to number one. So if it's really sharply moving towards the top of Kindle, like right when you put it out, that's a really good sign that it's converting well. It's doing everything that Amazon wants. But the tricky thing is, in my opinion, of course, when you launch the book, you have the algorithm is going to kind of be more favorable to the book. But then later on, it's not going to be as favorable. So you're pumping in paid advertising that may or may not be working while also working against the algorithm.
Correct. Yeah. So like, right when you launch your book, it favors you. The algorithm favors you. You have all this promotion. Some of it might be converting, some of it isn't, but you're still getting the sales in that conversion period, or in that initial launch period, right? And then as time goes on, Amazon will stop pushing you. So that's where your book needs to convert on its own, just by them showing you. And if it doesn't, they don't want you to stick around, because there's other books that are converting better. Why would they show you over them, right? And then, yeah, so yeah.
Have you noticed as much now that like even earlier in this year or last year, we would see a lot more of this delayed page read situation where we launched a book, we do everything, and then it's not until like a week or 2 weeks later, sometimes maybe even more, that the page reads start coming in, and then it gets sucked back into the algorithm. Are you still noticing that as much?
Sometimes it's weird, because sometimes you launch a book and you'll get like tons of page reads right off the bat. And like other times I've launched a book and I had like 0, and it's like, it's almost like it's frozen. Right. And it happens more often with box sets, I've noticed. So like literally
page reads are delayed with box sets.
Big time. Like, yeah, like my standalones I'm doing way better with standalones now than box sets. And we can get into that later, but like my whole strategy around standalones. But yeah, I've noticed that too. I noticed with box sets, it takes way longer. It takes weeks or months for page reads to get to that peak. Whereas standalones, I'll get that peak in like the first 2-3 weeks,
Yeah, I think for us, the box sets still do really well. And I like the idea that you have that one product that is worth in and of itself if you're maxing it out, like $15 if you get a full read through. So, I know the way that you do the standalones, it's almost, we'll get into that later. It almost is kind of like doing a box set.
Yeah.
But, I have noticed that the standalones do kick in with page reads quicker. It must have something to do with like the length of the book itself. So maybe Amazon is registering and reporting as people like finish the book. So with a box set, it may take a while for someone to finish the book. With a standalone, a reader can blow through a book in a day. So yeah, it's hard to assess, and it doesn't stay the same. Yeah, so the way Amazon reports page reads today may not be the way it reports page reads tomorrow. Things can go back. Box sets can start showing really quick. So it's like, do you worry about that type of thing, or do you just employ the best principles and let Amazon's algorithm do its thing?
I used to worry about it when I relied on box sets, but now box sets are like an afterthought for me. It's like a bonus to me. If the box set does well, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. So I don't really worry about that now. I used to, like, when a box set flopped, that was a huge problem back in the day. Not even like last year. But now it's kind of like I'll delay my box sets because my standalones are doing too good to kill it. So like, for example, in one of my pen names, the series was done, and typically I'd launch the box set like right away, like the next launch, right? I waited like 6 months because that series, every book was doing really good. I didn't want to kill it. So it'd be stupid for me to like launch the box set,
So I know you publish in multiple different genres. Do you feel like that is happening in all the genres you publish in, or do you feel like some genres do better with box sets than others?
It's kind of weird because one genre, that's where I can't get the box set to work. It's in the steamy genre, probably one of the same genres you're in. And yeah, the page reads are like frozen when I launch, like nothing works. But the other one, boom, right off the bat, crazy page reads. So it's very strange.
Are you talking about like with the standalone?
No, like when I launch a box set and like, how we were talking like pages freeze, like I had zero.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like one genre that happens like every time when I do a box set, whereas the other one, like when I launch a box set, it blows up. Like.
Interesting. I mean, is it like how many pen names do you have right now?
Just 2.
Okay, and they're in separate genres, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, we get that question from a lot of students, like how often or how quickly should I launch a second pen name, or should I go and start doing 2 things at once? And for you, what did you do?
Well, to tell you the truth, I had 3. So I had one, it was doing all right. It was doing good. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to duplicate it. So I launched another pen name in the same genre, and it flopped. It didn't do well at all. And that's because you're putting and especially when you start doing ads, you're doubling your resources that you have to spend when you could be putting it all into one, right? Like if I have 2 pen names in one genre and I'm launching every 2 weeks, that means I have to spend a lot on Facebook ads for each one, do the whole launch schedule, promotion, double the work pretty much. And then you only have limited resources when it comes to launches, right? So I found it just didn't work where it would work better if I put all the money. So let's say I'm spending $4,000 a month with 2 pen names. I could spend $8,000 a month with one and have a better launch, and come out with longer books, higher quality books, longer books. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And that's what we tell people, because if you're doing 2 pen names, you're building up 2 separate back catalogs. And whether you're doing a box set, whether you're doing the standalone strategy, it is all about the back catalog in essence. because a reader finds you under your pen name and they like you, and now they're going to read all your stuff. So each of your 2 pen names are now going to be half as long, because each, the KENP you have for each pen name is like it's like it's gold mine, right? So you're making each one smaller.
100%.
So
so like if you have one pen name, each launch, all the other books in the back catalog will piggyback off that one book. So essentially, it's like a bunch of mini launches too. You're going to benefit. One book takes off, you're going to benefit. All your other books are going to benefit from it. But if you have multiple pen names, then that doesn't happen. You're not going to get the read through like you would in one pen name. Not only that, when you launch a new book, you're getting all these new readers into your ecosystem that may have never seen you before. If you have good stuff, they're going to subscribe to your mailing list. And who knows, if they read one book and like it, they're going to read every single book you put out. So if you can keep doing that, that's how you grow. That's how you build like a crazy brand, right? Whereas if you have like a half-ass brand and they don't like your stuff, let's say you don't have hooks, you're not like generating page through, you're not like getting people from one chapter to another. So the page reads aren't coming in. They read the book and that's it. They'll never read a book again. They see your next launch, they're not going to buy it. They might click on it, but not buy it.
What do you mean by hooks?
Like for me, I'm trying to generate cliffhangers in each chapter. So like not cliffhanger at the end of the book. That's going to be a happy ever after. But I want somebody to go from chapter 1 to chapter 2. And I'm paying more attention to that. Like the end of the chapter, how does it go into the next chapter? The first chapter, the first sentence. And like, I just recently brought a developmental editor on board too. So she's like an expert in that kind of stuff. So my writer, so I have a brief, I send it to my writer. The writer will give me the plot, but the editor knows how a book should flow. So she's not like proofreading. She's directing the book. Like, no, the sex scene should happen here, not there. No, I want this kind of cliffhanger, not that. Or there is no cliffhanger here. What's going on? So basically, the writer might be good, but the writer isn't a plot writer, so they don't know how to like flow a book. So, if it's scattered all throughout, they're not going to read through.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really important thing, and that probably is something that will have to become more prevalent, because I feel like Amazon is just slowly iterating everybody to make the best book possible. And they're doing that through different reader metrics, right? Like conversion rate, your read through on the book in total. And so those people who are willing to go the extra mile to make a better book are going to be rewarded. But we were talking about book length before. Have you increased your book length at all? Or are you still mainly doing like 30,000 words, 50,000 words?
Yeah. So I think, I guess back to your question, I think you were asking when to start a second pen name. So like at first I would say don't start a second pen name until you like crushed it with the first one. But once you have your systems in place and it's doing well, and you then expand, because why not, right? But for me, so like one of my pen names, I'm completely dialed in, and it's at 40,000 word books. So if I'm dialed in and it's crushing it at 40,000 word books, why don't I double it? The readers are reading through. I have raving fans. It's converting because every launch sticks. So it means they're converting better than most other books. So I went from 40 to 50, and I'm going to 60 pretty soon. And I'll probably work my way up to 80 because it's working. But the other pen name, it's doing good, but not quite as good as that one. I have work to do on that one. I got to improve the quality. I got to get it to that point before I go with 60,000 word book. So right now, that name's like at 40,000. I think I'm trying 50,000 right now, but I got to make sure throughout the book that I have those hooks, that I have, the cliffhangers after each chapter, the quality's there. And if it's there, then I'll go 100K. If people are reading through, then I'll go as big as I want. So
yeah, and that is another really important thing is we tell people to really start at 30K because you don't really know what you're doing if what you're doing works.
Yeah.
And so if you're better off investing less on the 30K and do more of those, do 2 30Ks versus 1 60K, because in the beginning you don't really have everything dialed in, right? You don't have how to craft the cover as best as possible, crafting the titles, the descriptions. And so I think people need to have like some of these home run books before they start just going crazy and doing 50Ks, 60Ks. And I think, do you feel like there's a risk to starting to put out, say, 80Ks, 100Ks? Because then if your book isn't super on point and you're doing an 80K, the percentage of full read-throughs may go down. And so who knows what kind of impact that could have on the algorithm and your exposure.
100%. I would suggest that if somebody wants to start off with an 80K book, it is risky. They need to know the genre like inside out. And the best way to do that, and again, you could either read the top 10 best-selling books in your genre to know how the flow of the book is, to know where these hooks happen, all the quality, right? Read through all the reviews, positive, negative reviews, find out what they love about it, what they hate about it, and basically know your genre inside out. And if you can get a writer that is on the same page, and at the same time, the blurbs too, like the blurb needs to be 100% on point, right? Like, so that the top 10 blurbs, study those. And if you can make your blurbs like that, and you know the genre very well, then it could be worth the gamble. But I would suggest to learn the business first before you go like that crazy. But
yeah, exactly. And that's, again, a fundamental thing. Kindle is always changing. So, people ask us questions and we try to, again, help people out. But the point is always going to be whatever is working. So even though you may like a blurb or it's a blurb that may have worked well in the past, is it similar to what's selling right now?
Yeah.
Because with fiction, there's trends. You can't really deny that. So it's just a fluid game. You have to always go by what's working right now.
Yeah. And to add to that too, going on trends. So I had one of my pen names. There was a really hot new trend in that niche, right? But so I jumped on the bandwagon and like made a series with that trend, and it was something different, but within the niche, but it was a little bit different. And my readers and the people in my network's readers did not resonate with that trend. So it flopped. The whole series flopped. And I had like 4 or 5 books in production that it was a pure loser.
Well, when you say a pure loser, did you lose money on those in total, or do you feel like you lost money on them?
Yeah, I lost money. And so the reason, like, my branding wasn't attracting, like, that trend was more resonating with brands that branded in that kind of way. Whereas my brand was more, it was directed to different types of readers in the same genre. If you know what I'm talking about.
I think I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like how we tell people inside of our course. It's like you can look at a genre and you can identify multiple, I guess you can call them sub themes or tropes or little niches inside the genre.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to sort of play off of those and like combine them, but you need to be careful not to combine them in a way that doesn't make sense, right? Because if people are reading like a super specialized subgenre, and then you go and you say, oh, I'm going to combine this with this, now you've kind of done something that's like half baked. It's not really going to work as well because you're not at that point, you're not doing what works. You're taking 2 things that are working and combining them into some sort of unknown half-breed child that is it's not going to be the same. But I'm surprised that What's up, Joe?
No, I was gonna say it's like a clean Western alien shifter. Like the cowboy's
Exactly.
like secretly an alien, and
Yeah.
it's no good.
Yeah. One of our friends, when we were first doing Kindle publishing, he had got into it as well. This is like back in the 8K days, the republishing stuff. He had tried to do like a lesbian Christian romance. And so it was like a nun. Joe, what was the name of the book? Do you remember?
Oh, it was actually really funny. The name of the book.
Yeah.
You should ask him that, honestly.
Yeah,
is it still
I want to
alive?
ask. No, I doubt it. But what was I gonna say? So, that explains what we're talking about there. But I totally lost my train of thought now.
I wanted to actually, while you gather your thought, I want to bring up something that happened back in the day, and I think it just speaks to exactly what we're talking about now, about having the themes really dialed in with the cover and the blurb and everything like that, and the title, because that's something that you can totally get wrong or you can get really, really right. And I remember one time Mike came out with a book, and the title had like a clear spelling error. Like, it was like ridiculous, like how dumb the spelling error was. But the book like totally took off because it was just all those things, like the cover, the blurb, like everything else was on point. So it just kind of speaks to like that, like I said before, like having like a clean Western alien shifter type book. Like, that's never going to work because that's like the opposite of what you should do. But if you do that right, even if you get a few other things wrong, like, I don't know, like maybe some stupid grammatical stuff or whatever, you're still going to do well.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Or even in like contemporary romance, if let's say your branding is all billionaire romance and you're known for billionaires, like every book you put out is all billionaires. And next thing you know, there's a hot mafia trend, mafia romance, and that's contemporary too, right?
Yeah.
So you might jump on that trend. All your fans and everybody that you promote to know you for billionaire. Next thing you know, you're coming out with a mafia romance. It's a hot trend, but it won't convert with your brand because it's different.
What if you're doing billionaire mafia?
Well, then see, that's a test. So it could work or it could not. Like,
yeah,
that's where the risk. I mean, it could blow up and you can make a lot of money, or they just won't resonate and it'll just like flop, right?
Yeah, so that's actually something I want to ask you about right now. So you called that a test, and so I view that the same way. I'll continually kind of be testing. So I'll put out different books that I feel like are combining this and this, or they're combining this and this, all while trying to stick to what I feel like my readership wants. So is that something you do as well? Or do you feel like once you find a groove that you're just making those books? You're not going to test anything else?
I would say I like to test, but like the one pen name where it's just crushing it. I'm done my testing. Like, I know what works and I'm just going with it. That being said, though, I still am willing to try new things. Now I'm in my groove kind of thing. And it did take some testing to get there, right? Whereas my other pen name is doing well, but I'm testing all the time because I haven't found that groove that works every single time.
Yeah. That's interesting. So once you find, say once you have a series that does really well, the next series, you're just going to kind of copy all those same themes and tropes and whatever.
Different combinations. Yeah. Like so not copy, but emulate. So like it'll be different combinations of tropes, a different setup of the title. So the title, like in one series, all the titles could start with my, right? And then the next series, it could start with the, just for an example, right? Like you're setting up your series the same kind of way. And then of course you're going to have like different cover themes for each series. But you still want to look like it's your branding,
Of course. So I would say those are actually more miniature tests.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's never really Yeah, because the only way to not be testing something would be to completely copy what you just did, and you can't do that.
No. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, even something like even the covers, right? You are going to have to change those up in some way from series to series. And so I think that's one of the harder things to evaluate in Kindle is you put out one book or one series, it does really well. And then you put out another series, and depending on how it does, it's hard to interpret those results because is it the algorithm? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this change I made to the covers? So how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for example, like the one flop that I was talking about, like I know like typically when I launch like what ranks I can get to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if it doesn't even come close to that, I know it's way off. It's completely off. It's not even the matter of testing, but like let's say normally I get to top 100 and the next time I'm like top 400 or 500. It's still a good launch, but there might be something within the cover or the blurb that's missing. And what I could do is I could change things on the fly to see if that like helps the rank or like improves it, or like let's say it's going in the wrong direction, maybe it'd bring it back, but I don't. So what I usually do is the next book I'll try something else. So like I'll usually like change the blurb up a bit. Covers you can't really change much because your whole series is kind of like the same cover style. So like usually I'll launch book 1, book 2, because maybe book 1 is just the trope that's off. Like maybe the cover's on, the blurb's good, but the tropes just are off a little bit. So then book 2 might like be a home run hit, which I've had happen before, where book 1 was so-so, and then book 2 took off, book 3 took off. But let's say I launched book 1, book 2, and they're like top trending tropes. That's 2 books with 2 top trending tropes with blurbs that are written good and all that kind of stuff. That tells me to like pack it in early. Like usually I'll have a series of like 6 books. Maybe I'll cut it short at 3, depending like where I am in the production schedule, right? Like if I'm done, if I launch book 2 and it flops and the writers just finished book 3, I'll pack it in at book 3 books. Whereas I used to just let it ride to like 6 or 4, but now I kind of like, I'll cut my losses short when yeah.
You don't feel like though, if you just commit to a number, say 4 to 6 each time, then maybe what if instead of book 3, what if it's book 4 that it really takes off, and then that will kind of juice up the whole series? You don't feel like that's a possibility?
I think it is, but I think if it's the covers, then no, because you'd have to change like the style of that, right, for all of them.
Yeah.
But if it's the trope, like the blurb, or like, I think book 4 could totally take off. But normally I won't go much further than that if they're all kind of like whatever.
Well, so we talked about how you had one series that totally flopped and you lost money on it. Have you ever done something to try and relaunch a bad series in terms of just change up the covers and then relaunch it or something of that nature?
Yeah, I kind of. So that the standalones flopped, but then I rebranded the box set, and the box set did well. So that told me it was the cover problem. Because well, it could be a cover problem, or they just really wanted a box set. But I think I completely changed like the fonts, like the way the cover looked. It looked like a different series, really. And it converted much better, and I made money off of it. So, but I have not totally rebranded a series to try to revive it or anything, which maybe I should try that. But
yeah, and I don't want to make things seem like, doom and gloom. Like if everything isn't on point, you're gonna flop, or you're gonna put out a box set and you're gonna lose money. I feel like personally, I don't think there's any series I've put out that hasn't broken even after, say, like 6 months to a year. Worst case scenario. And at that point, it's pure profit. So, I mean, out of all the series you've put out, like what percentage of them do you feel like have not broke even?
Actually, let me go back. So that one where I say I lost money, I would say with the box set and everything and over time, like it probably broke even or made money. So that's a year later, right? So I would say 100% of the time I don't lose money. Like,
okay, yeah. Because I think, you know, making profit after a year, a lot of people would say, hey, that's a pretty good investment. You know, you go and you buy a house to rent out. You're not making profit until many years down the line. But with this, okay, it took you a year to make your money back. Well, now that thing is pure profit, and I know you're not into the box sets as much anymore, but you take that box set and you make it, you make that as part of an 8-book or a 12-book. And now you're going to make even more profit on that. And you can change up the cover, do a little bit of rebranding there. So I feel like it's really, really hard to lose in the long term doing Kindle publishing, because say it takes you a year. It's so what? I mean, it's not, maybe you can't live off of that box set, but it's still just something that would passively performing, and you can always use that series as an asset to put into new books later or new box sets later, and just do other things with it.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, even if, like 100% of the time, I'd say over a year, break even for sure. I would say most of my series, like I haven't had many like losses or like flops, I guess, so to speak. You do have like some launches that do better than others. That's just the way it is. But at the end of the day, you're putting a mini asset out that will always produce you some type of revenue, whether it's $1 a day, $5 a day, $20 a day, $100 a day. You're gonna always generate revenue from that asset you put out.
Exactly.
And there is ways to like revive them a little bit. Like you can do Kindle Countdown, you can do free promos to like bring it back in. Let's say it's making $1 a day, and that now it's doing like $7 a day. Well, that's great, right? It's just sitting on your shelf. So I would say like most people like getting started, they are scared because it's a big investment to get started, because you have to get your quality in place. You've got to hire your writers, and you got to put money into ads nowadays, whereas back in the day you didn't have to. And nowadays it's quality, and like quality writers are more money. You need more editors on board now, like than you used to. Covers are more money than they used to be. Everything's like way up in quality. So you have to match that. And you need, like, the money is in the back catalog. So you can launch book 1 and lose money, but by the time book 6 is out, 6 months later, you'll have made a lot of profit. So a lot of people don't see it that way. They see, oh shoot, I got to put 10 grand in, and like I'm not going to see a return anytime soon. But that's just like in any business, like, it takes time to get that back, right? And that's the thing with Kindle, is like you put money in and you're building your army, you're building your empire, right? So once your foundation is solid, then it's just profit every month, but it takes some time to get there. Not a lot of time. I'd say between 4 and 6 months, you can start generating some really good profits.
And you do FBA, so I always tell people that FBA is probably like the worst business model you can get into when it comes to like actually having cash flow that you can live off of eventually.
100%.
And Kindle is it's kind of second on our list for that. It's not first on our list. We have dropshipping is first on our list for that, but Kindle is definitely the second best for that. I mean, FBA is just, we had someone asking us about FBA today, and your thoughts on it are probably different because you're successful at it, or maybe they're not. You could tell me. I wouldn't wish doing FBA as a first-time business, online business, on my worst enemy, because you're competing with the manufacturers themselves, especially if you're importing from China. You're competing with the other Amazon sellers. You're competing with Amazon itself, who could come in and make their own brand and just, decimate your whole thing. You're competing with the Amazon incompetent reps, the Amazon seller reps who are
completely.
Yeah, you said it, not me. But Jeff, if you're listening, I'm sorry. No, but yeah. So you get that's the point, is that people, they're so short-sighted when it comes to, they'll pick a business model, and if it doesn't return money right away, they're like, oh crap, like it's not working. Let me go do FBA now. Let me go do this. Let me go do that. But
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I think we can all agree that when it comes to getting an ROI, Kindle is absolutely amazing in the short term and long term.
The way I see it is, there's so many different business models out there online that all work. Every single one of them work. It's just, who are you as a person? What is your goals? What do you want to achieve? And like, really, it's who you are and what you want to get out of it means what model to go after. So like, if you're looking to quit your job and pay yourself and replace your income with FBA, then that's the completely wrong model to do, because FBA is all about building. It's like a long-term thing, like a 2 to 5 year project before you even think about paying yourself. I mean, you can pay yourself, but like, there's dropshipping is way better of a model to pay yourself than FBA or like Kindle. It's more cash flow. They're more cash flow type businesses, where dropshipping is kind of both, because you can pay yourself and you can still flip the site and make a good, whereas FBA, you're investing tons of money into inventory. And, then you got to build your brand. That costs money. You got to acquire the customers. But just like Kindle, like, it all like flows to you down the road, but it takes time to do all that. So really, if somebody goes into this thinking, okay, I want to build a huge brand, I'm patient, I'm not in a hurry to quit my job, and my goal is to build this supplement company and get bought out by like, one of the top companies for 7 figures or more, and I'm willing to put in the work, and like, this is what I want to do, then maybe that's the model for you. But if you cash now and like you want to quit your job, then I would, there's so many other models that are better for that.
Yeah. But I was gonna say,
Joe, you can go.
I kind of lost my train of thought there. No.
Well, I was gonna say, really, what we're about and what we try to teach people is, that whole thing is in mind, right? A lot of average people don't want or know how to begin this 5-year journey of reinvesting all their profits into some business, and say 2 years down the road, something happens, it goes sour. You just wasted your time.
Yeah.
So we're about doing something that you can do it long term and it compounds, but you still get the cash flow and it's still something you can sell. So
correct.
At least with Kindle, it's replenish the asset.
Yeah, Kindle is a really good stepping stone. So it's a really good thing to get started on, to quit your job and make double what you make at a job. That's totally doable within the first year. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, but it's totally doable. And then if you're passionate about other things, it gives you the freedom to do that, where, and you can like live a great life. You can travel, you can like do the things you want to do. Right.
And if you want to learn more about exactly what we're talking about, how the different business models rank up, don't forget buildassetsonline.com/playbook. Grab our free course where we break it all down for you. What I was going to say was that FBA has so many moving parts compared to Kindle. It's not just the cash flow. It's not just all the things that I talked about, but you have to coordinate so many things compared to just creating a digital product. At least I think so. Do you find that as well?
100%. Yeah. Like, it's the same thing though. The same principles apply. Like, you gotta, just like the cover, like your packaging needs to look good. Your product images, like your listing itself needs to be 100% dialed in. But at the same time, the way I look at it, and this is what I like, a huge aha moment, is a lot of people get in FBA thinking, what product should I sell? And like, what product should I sell? They look for like hot selling products where they can make a profit. Oh, it's not saturated. There's not a lot of reviews. Oh, this guy's making 30 grand a month. I can do the same thing. And they launched a product. But my aha moment is, no, it's not the product. It's like, what person do I want to serve? What market do I want to get into? And who are they? Learn everything about this person and figure out their journey. So like, what's the first product they buy? And then you're launching products to this person, this, and you can even, like, for example, Bulletproof Coffee. Dave Asprey, he launched this crazy brand. It's going to be worth $1 billion pretty soon. Like, it's huge. And he started off blogging, and he just blogged about like keto diet and like how ghee butter and MCT oil mixed with mold-free coffee is like the best thing ever. And he had this razor sharp audience of like who he was talking to, and that's what. So he launched Bulletproof Coffee, and then he launched like an MCT oil and like other, not just coffee, right? So he's like launching products to his person.
So
and that's
are you doing that process like starting with Amazon FBA rather than starting with the blog?
Yeah. So like for me, I'm in the supplements. I'm in like the vegan space, right? So my person is vegan, people that want to take vegan supplements. So like, what's the first thing a vegan that wants to take supplement? What are they're going to do, like an omega or like a B12, right? And so like, I'm trying to build that, like I have high quality, but like to build an audience, you could do like, you could just talk about plant-based nutrition. And like your main topic is plant-based nutrition, but like, and that's your audience, and you're building like, but you're launching products to that audience. It could be ManyChat or like email, and it could turn out to be like food products. Who knows, right? Like that's a huge trend too, right? Vegans, like healthy vegans,
But so you're doing this, like, how are you doing this on FBA? Is what I'm asking. Because how do you
sorry.
I think he's just saying he goes after that particular customer base, so that way, like a back catalog, it's going to lead to
like what I'm trying to do going forward is I want to basically build an audience on Facebook and launch to that audience and send them to Amazon. Like when I launch a new product, I have like a list of like 1,000 raving fans that will buy it on day one.
I see.
That's my goal. Right?
I don't want to get too deep in. I mean, I would like to actually continue this conversation, but I feel like I don't want to get too far off the topic of Kindle.
For sure.
But I had something I wanted to say regarding that. No, I think that's interesting. I was going to say that if I was going to do FBA in the future, I would definitely like, I don't know if you're doing all this yourself, but it seems crazy. Like you need to have experts in all like levels of the field. Like for example, like if I was going to do it, like, I would want someone to handle the Amazon stuff. Maybe I would want to handle the blogging stuff. Mike would handle the Shopify, like getting the customers from Google, from Google Shopping and stuff like that. It just seems like, it is if you want to do it successfully, it is a multi-year project. So are you doing this all by yourself, or do you have like partners that help you with this?
I have a partner, but it's very hard. Like doing all this, like that's the thing. You need to like get a team, and that's where I'm like starting to do. And especially when you're like in many different things, you need a team. You got to automate as much as you can. At the same time, keep the quality there so it's successful, right? But the way I'm doing is I'm learning it all, and then I'll hand off pieces as I go, And for the FBA thing, I'm not in a rush, so like it's not my focus right now. Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. Well, it has been an hour, so. We promised people in the Elite Fleet Plus, that we'll be going onto Elite Fleet with Steven for a special office hour Q&A, where we're going to get more in depth on strategies and, real nitty gritty stuff on Kindle publishing. So if you are an Elite Fleet member and you want to ask Steven questions, you can hop in. And by the way, my friend did answer me as to what that lesbian Christian. It was none of the above. NUN. So there we go.
So Kurt Knoll asked a question about pricing box sets, but that's going to be happening in the after hours chat.
Yeah, we're going to get more in depth on that.
So he's in the Elite Fleet, so you could join Kurt.
Cool. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Steven. And we're not done with you yet, but I think that was really insightful, even just what we covered over this last hour. Because it's always good to get another expert opinion on what they're doing Kindle publishing, and that's why it's important to have a group of people that are all publishing together, like you and I have been doing for many years, along with others.
Very important.
Because we talk about testing. Everyone is always doing these little tests on their own, and we all kind of work as a collective to figure out what's working, and that's how we are increasing our earnings together. And it's a very collaborative process. So yeah, I really appreciate your time.
For sure, no problem. And let me just say one more thing on the because we were talking about like how long it takes to break even and start making money and all that. And like I didn't mention this, but the most important thing is you create a series, and it's all kind of like one world, but it's all standalones in the world, right? And every book, like book 1 promotes book 2, book 2 promotes book 3, book 3 promotes book 4, right? And like this is where the magic happens. So let's say I launch book 5, right? Most of the time I will launch book 5 at a loss, and I don't care, because let's say I'm spending $150 a day on book 5, and let's say I make $150 a day on book 5, or maybe I only make $100, so I'm losing $50 a day on book 5. I will do that all day long for a whole month if books 1, 2, 3, 4 are making good money. So if I'm spending like $200 a day on ads on book 5, but the series overall is making me $400 to $500 to $600, I don't care if I lose money on book 5. It's like a lost leader, right? So book 5 goes up in the ranks, you're in the top 100, and all of a sudden all the people are buying book 5, they're buying all your books, and like all your other books jack up, and like that's where the magic happens. But
cool. Yeah, I would say that's kind of similar to the box set strategy, whereas you've basically paid for all the content in the box set by the time the box set is even out, ideally. So you don't really need to make profit immediately on the box set, because you've everything you put out with the box set is instant profit. So it will come eventually, especially with the high page read count inside of a box set. But
yeah,
we'll get into more of that very shortly. So
cool.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys inside the Elite Fleet. So take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Well, should we tell people what the Elite Fleet is? They might be first-time listeners, but
well, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the Elite Fleet is our private membership group where you get access to all of our courses, our Kindle publishing course included. And, we hold these office hours where you get to ask questions. You get a private channel with us one-on-one. Unfortunately, it is closed right now, but you can check out buildassetsonline.com/membership if you want to check it out and sign up to get alerted when we open it again. So,
yeah, and this will be recorded if you want to check it out and you become a member later on. So,
indeed.
Thank you, guys.